Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. We're coming to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Eben Abunda. Let's get started. Now, on the chase tonight, we turn to a significant shift in Zimbabwe's economic policy. The government has directed that all local suppliers and contractors be paid exclusively in the Zimbabwe gold, the ZiG, while introducing a national standard price list aimed at standardizing procurement and tightening control over public spending. However, the US dollar still dominates everyday transactions, and the questions remain about the impact on businesses, pricing, and overall market confidence, with, of course, the domestic currency accounting for over 40% of formal transactions in this very economy. Now, in a recent development, Zimbabwe has once again adjusted fuel prices upwards, with the latest increase taking effect yesterday. The Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority announced that petrol is now pegged at $2.17 per litre, up from $1.71, while diesel has risen to $2.05 per litre from $1.77. That's, of course, translating to a jump of about 27%. Authorities say the price review is part of ongoing efforts to align local fuel costs with developments on the global market, particularly rising oil prices driven by escalating tensions in the Middle East. Our discussion tonight: ZiG only for suppliers, a turning point or a gamble? Now, joining me in the studio is Blessing Nyatanga, a banker as well as an economist. We also have Mishek Ugaro, President, Zimbabwe Economic Society, as well as a senior economist with the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce. We also have Moses Chihuri, an industrial economist, joining us on this very conversation. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome to The Chase.
Good evening.
Fantastic. Please note that the views expressed on The Chase are those of our guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Zim Papers Limited 1980 or those of ZTN Prime. Well, let's cut to the chase. Government has positioned itself as the anchor for local currency adoption through exclusive ZiG payments to local contractors and suppliers. Now, from a macroeconomic standpoint, how effective is this top-down approach in reversing dollarization trends in an economy where the informal sector still heavily relies on US dollars? I'll start with you, Mr. Moses Chihuri.
Thank you, Eben. Thank you for having us on this wonderful program. I would like to say whatever policy shift, it has somewhere to start. And as a country, as a people, we need to have the pride of having our own currency. As a people, we need to be prepared for whatever teething issues that are going to come out of this move. In principle, it's a good move. But on application now, that is where the issue is. If you had to look at the consumption side, who is the biggest consumer in the market? The biggest consumer is the government. So whatever they are going to do, it will set the tone in the market. So in principle, I agree, let's go to 100% ZiG. But the challenge now is, what is going to happen to the cost build-up of the supplier? To me, it's a give and take. The supplier, the difficult question that we have to ask ourselves, is it the government only who they are dealing with? If yes, are we saying if they are going to get 100% ZiG, how are they going to fund the other lines of expenses? Like if you look at their labor, the labor aspect, the NECs right now, they are saying 75% of a salary should be in USD and 25% should be in ZiG. So now there's a challenge, there's a mismatch. I've supplied, let's say, beef to government as an example. I've supplied, let's say, bricks as an example to the government, and I've been paid 100% in ZiG. Is there a mechanism where, as a supplier, I can access the forex on the local market? If not, then there's an issue. If there's no supply of USD or foreign currency to local suppliers, what is going to happen? I'm going to chase the US dollar on the market at whatever price that I'm going to find it at. That causes inflation. because more and more people, they are going to panic. So, you know what, I've got my 2 million, 5 million that I've received from the government. Let me go and get US dollars. So in principle, it's a good move. But in practice now, on implementation, that is where the issue. But if they can give the assurance to say, whoever is genuine, who needs US dollars for whatever they want to use, they can access the dollars from the local institutions. I think that would be a good move. But if not, we might undo some of the gains that we've gotten in the last 2 years because of the stability that we have. I'm very happy to say there's stability in the market. But how best can we maintain that stability when Mr. Banda has been paid 5 million for road construction, 10 million for building a bridge, and is sitting on $15 million? And he has got obligations to pay in USD. You need to pay your ZESA in USD. You need to pay your fuel in USD. You need to pay your salaries in USD. Maybe your margin is 10%.
So your concern is this could trigger a run on the domestic currency.
It can trigger a run on domestic currency. What I would suggest we do as a people, we need to have a round table, a tripartite. Remember the TNF, Tripartite Negotiating Forum, where we need to tone down our appetite. Government should give to say, okay, from my taxes that I'm taxing on diesel, okay, I'm going to forgo 30%, I'm going to forgo 30 cents as an example. The NDCs, guys, let's reduce. Instead of saying 75% of the salary should be in USD, let's reduce it to 40%, 60% ZIG, 40% USD. If you go to business, guys, for the next 30 days, you're not going to increase your prices. Why do I say so? The effects of inflation are not going to be felt by one party. Everyone in the value chain is going to feel the effects.
So your takeaway is this could have an inflationary effect.
Definitely.
With this very policy is concerned.
Definitely.
The National Standard Price List, your sentiment, Mr. Ugaro?
The National Standard Price List is good. It brings transparency in the market. It brings uniformity across the MDAs and SOEs. What was happening in the past is you could sell a computer to one ministry at price X and sell the same computer to another ministry at price X plus 2 and still win the tender because there was no uniformity. What the government is doing is to try and create value for money by using market prices, general market prices for specific items that they normally buy from the market. The only proviso I would have with that is that that list must be frequently revised because prices also move. They are not fixed, so they must frequently update it. And I'm not sure who is going to do it, whether it's going to be Zimstad. It must be a fixture on some of the information that comes out on a monthly basis for market to use, for like the way inflation comes out, the way our reserve money numbers from central bank comes out. I think that list should also come out. It really preserves value for money for the government, whilst making the field very open and competitive for doing business with government. So I'm fully in support of it. I think that now twinned with the idea or the principle which has just been announced of paying the contractors or any service provider to government 100% in ZIG is actually in support of trying to stabilize both the currency and the market itself. If you really look at from the Minister of Finance, which launched the National Standards Price List, was immediately supported by another statement from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, complementary. They were almost like 2 hours or so apart, where the central bank on the other side was guaranteeing the market that whenever you need to access foreign currency for imports, you are definitely guaranteed to find that money in the bank. So to that level, it brings some sort of confidence. But lastly, like he mentioned, the only problem or challenge is the cost makeup of the service suppliers to government. They are still, you see, our market is 30% local currency and 70%. We can even be generous to say 40% local currency and 60% foreign currency. So the cost build-up generally of suppliers is in that structure. And if we are to look at the statement by the central bank in the MPS, the governor announced that the road to mono currency will be driven by market. So the government has taken the initial bold step, very bold, but perhaps there's room to relook at it and probably put it along the market to say the market is at 30-70, so the payments will be in that ratio. If they want to be aggressive, they can even say 50-50 in order to drive it forward. I think it would be fair enough because in truth, the service providers also have other sales in the market in foreign currency, so they also have other sources of foreign currency. But otherwise, back to your question, I think the national standard price list is important. It saves money for the government. It makes uniform pricing across all MDAs, state-owned enterprises, all public entities. You now know a computer sold to Ministry A at price X is the same price to Ministry B, and that's standard.
Right. Nyatanga, may you weigh in on the national standard price list. Two key factors there. There will now be a benchmark price list that all government agencies and all state-owned enterprises are going to run with. At the same time, for domestically available products, government says it will be paying exclusively in the domestic currency, the ZiG. Your take?
Okay, now the first advantage is that it's obviously going to bring about transparency, like he has mentioned. So I think on that note, that is good going forward regarding transparency. But I think it will also be imperative, it will be prudent for the government to ensure that prices for these products are not set too low, so that suppliers they actually supply at fair prices to avoid the issue of short goods or supplying things that are substandard. And then in terms of paying solely in the local currency, I think the challenge that brings is that the cost structure for suppliers, as we've mentioned, is largely in the United States dollar. So whenever these suppliers are paid solely in the ZiG, they still have to access Forex to fund certain payments, like fuel and labor issues. So I think there has to be that arrangement that when these suppliers are paid solely in the ZiG, there is a platform that they can access Forex to fund certain expenses that are still in the United States dollar. I think that issue will only be solved when we are fully using the monocurrency, but at the moment, because we're still in a multi-currency regime, then obviously there has to be that arrangement where when you have paid me in the ZiG, there should be that platform to access United States dollar to fund certain elements that are still in the United States dollar.
Right. Talk to me, Mr. Ugaro, around the subject of the availability of foreign currency as and when it is needed. I get paid in the ZiG to prevent me as a business player from getting back to the black market to source of foreign currency. From an experiential perspective, I'll ask this question to both of you as industry players to say, what is your perspective of the way in which the flow of the exchange regime that we have got in place is playing out?
Yeah, thanks, Iban. The truth is foreign currency for imports is now available. If you talk to the banks, they are paying. You bring your genuine documents for an import, you get your import paid for. So to that extent, the government, the Reserve Bank has actually lived up to its basis, to its promise. I think the misconception that is there is that perhaps the market expects to access foreign currency from the banks for use locally. the specific scenario is such that local transactions must be in local currency. However, as I said, the current structure is such that we have not yet reached the total local currency usage. We're still at 30-40% local currency. I think that going forward, therefore, through social dialogue, there is room to review. And I'm urging the government to review it, and perhaps I know that they are 70% of the market. So basically they are the market. And if you want to be brutal, you can say the market has decided that I pay now 100%, because that's the market. They are 70% of the market. But I think the government being sensitive and being, obviously they are aware of, they want to develop more business and achieve economic growth, they can actually have room to gradually achieve this 100% target. I wanted to mention one other thing, which I think is important. The fact that the government is saying now they will be paying 100% in ZIG is actually a signal that soon taxes will be in ZIG. Because for the government to be able to meet its commitments in ZIG, they need ZIG. So it means they will have to raise this ZIG through taxes. So the market must think about it and see this as a positive, to say actually where we are moving is that soon the government will be wanting more ZIG in order to meet its commitments to its suppliers. So they will be raising more ZIG. The only way they raise ZIG is through taxes or charging for its services. So you should be expecting, I'm a positive, optimistic, I am expecting the government to start saying, okay, we need ZIG to issue passports. We need ZIG in the hospitals. Go pay ZIG to ZESA, and so on and so forth. So that they raise a ZIG. So gradually, I think this is the cycle we are heading towards. But as we speak right now, we are not yet there. So I think there's room to, as he said, for social partners to meet, and it's a give and take. It's a win for all. We know that labor, definitely, because transport prices have gone up. Food prices will follow. That's given. And then wages have to go up as well. But if everyone gives compromises, starting with the government, then it comes to business, then labor themselves, I think a mid of the road settlement can be achieved.
Right. This introduces us to subject number 2, which is the inflationary impact of the fuel price hikes that we have witnessed. Well, of course, on global markets, Brent oil is up over 40% in just a matter of 3 weeks, trading at about 108 US dollars yesterday. And here in Zimbabwe, we have seen fuel jump about 37%, just 27% recorded yesterday. What does that mean for Zimbabwe?
All right. I would like to bring some positives out of this whole equation. In terms of, instead of people to panic, I think we need to take a step back as a people to say, okay, fine. There's a 27% increase or a 30% increase in fuel. What is the downstream impact of the fuel to the business? What is the downstream effect of fuel to the economy, right? And what can we do as a people? Because realistically, there's nothing the government would have done to stop the war happening out there. These are the downstream impact that we are getting. But as a people, what do we need to do? I'll give you an example. Out of a 10, if we are to increase the price of diesel versus the price of petrol, where will we have more impact? I think diesel will have more impact on the economy than petrol. Why do I say so? We are having power cuts here and there. We are going to be running generators. But if I'm to subsidize diesel, as an example, not to say that I don't need cheaper petrol in my car, but I'm saying, yes, I can get cheaper petrol, but at the end of the day, I'm going to buy expensive bread. Why can't we protect that chicken which is laying the golden egg, right? Right now, I can confirm to you to say, this week we received more than 10, 15, 20 companies writing to say we are increasing prices. Right?
Why?
Because there's increase in fuel, right?
So
and the
16
fuel,
of your suppliers.
yes. The fuel that they refer to is the diesel. The NECs, the trade unions, they're also writing to say, guys, we want to, can you please come and cushion our employees? Town to Mavuku is now $2. Town to Chitungwiza is now $2.50, as an example, right? And it's making sense. An employee is not paying $5 to and from. So as a person, my recommendation was, these things we can't afford to avoid them. But how can we minimize the impact? Let's cushion diesel. Let's have the petrol comrades to bear the burden for industry. Not that we don't need the petrol guys, we need them. But we need to go back to transport operators to say, you are not supposed to increase bus fare because we've covered you on fuel. Retailers, you are not going to increase your prices. Well, yes, you are running on generators, but look at diesel, it hasn't gone up. But if we are to go like what it is right now, the inflationary pressures, we are going to witness them anytime soon. The reason being, all the lines of expenses, they are going to be felt by the cost of the fuel. Labor is one of them. Power generation is one of them. Transportation is one of them. So as a recommendation, I would recommend if there was any way where we can subsidize diesel as a stopgap measure. I wouldn't want to undo the justice that has been done by the government by bringing the stability. There's stability even. Right now, if I can tell you, you can put your invoice on Monday to a bank. By Tuesday, Wednesday, it is paid. There's money for imports. But how can we look at the local guys? Right now, we are having people, the poultry industry, the beef industry. These guys are charging predominantly in US dollars. Right? Are we saying their cost structure is 100% USD? I think there's an element of national patriotism where we should say, guys, you know what? We can actually say 20% is USD and maybe 80% is ZiG. Why? We are the people who are going to build or destroy the country. One day we'll look back and say, you know what, during our time, we did this. During our time, we didn't do this. So to answer your question, if we don't interfere, interfere right now, or if we don't intervene on the issue of fuel prices, very soon we'll be meeting here again to say, guys, Milimu is now $15. It will be too late. But my suggestion will be the social partners. Let's go into a room. The same people who came up with the collective bargaining agreement for salaries, they can still sit again. Guys, go, sit down. What are we saying? Pay your employees more of their salaries in ZiG. And government, are you going to guarantee that the ZiG will be there? Yes, it will be there. Business, are you going to guarantee us that price is not going to go up? Yes, I'm going to guarantee. Okay, let's play the employee in ZiG. Or let's also look at the cost of doing business. I appreciate what the government has done. There are still some other areas that we still need to look at to say, okay, fine. If it is costing me X amount to get a permit, why can't we halve it? They need to compensate that portion that I wanted to increase on the fuel. Government can now come and say, hey, look, Chihuri, I reduced your permit.
Right. You're speaking now more on the solution
Yeah.
to what is looming and what very much is at bay.
Sure.
Mr. Nyatanga, may you speak to us about why we are seeing the surge in terms of the prices in Zimbabwe? Yes, there is the geopolitical tensions and the crisis that is playing out at of course, the Hormuz and the American-Iranian conflict that's got that bearing on the market. But it seems here in Zimbabwe, we are feeling the fuel hike pinch more than our regional counterparts. If you check South African media, they are still speaking of potential increases and the margins thereof. But here in Zimbabwe, we've already moved. Why is that?
I think it's because of the tax element here in Zimbabwe, which is, I think it's 85 cents, 86 cents. So I think because of that is why we've felt the pinch more than our counterparts, as you say.
It's about 23 cents in Zambia.
Yes, and I think that we may have to implore the government on that note through the Minister of Finance. I think he may have to adjust the tax component if we are to be cushioned as a country, because as it stands, obviously we are going to feel the inflationary effects of these changes, because our fuel has had a sharp increase. So I think this is the point where the government might have to step in and adjust the tax component so that it remains a bit competitive, and also it doesn't affect the increase in the prices of other goods and services.
Right, Mr. Ugaro, let's get into some statistics. Zimbabwe is in the top 5 of Africa's most expensive fuel. According to globalpetrol.com, in position 5, you've got Sierra Leone at $1.62 a litre, Senegal $1.63 a litre, Central African Republic $1.86 a litre, Zimbabwe $2.17 a litre, and Malawi $2.85 a litre. Why is that?
I thought you were going to leave out Malawi. I was ready to say, but Malawi is there, number 1, ahead of us. At least we are not number 1. Okay, like he says, it's basically the tax aspect. You see the structure of our tax on the fuel sector. It's ad valorem. So what it means is an unfortunate situation where the petroleum prices are going up results in the government actually collecting more, because it's a percentage of the value of the fuel. So it's an unplanned, can I say, windfall for Treasury, because they will now collect effectively more than what had been budgeted for. So this is where I support what he's saying, that perhaps the government can look at it and say what we had budgeted for in this current budget for 2026 is a certain amount from these taxes, even at that rate that it is. But now, at the current rate, they will definitely collect more. So there's room to review it backwards and perhaps still achieve the target that was there in the budget, but with a benefit to the market. It also goes along with what Mr. I'm forgetting his name.
Mr. Chiwuri,
yeah,
yes.
Mr. Chiwuri was saying. So it effectively would not be a negative on the government revenues. Because the point is we are aware we must not reduce government revenues because they have got a lot of obligations. But at least if it remains where they had budgeted for. However, there is a caveat. Taxes are a matter of the Finance Act. And the earliest that it can be reviewed is probably mid-term, June, July.
But
July,
the crisis
is now.
Is playing out
Yes.
right now.
So the challenge that I see Treasury having is how to do it, because it's a matter of the law now. Whether they can play around with the ad valorem taxes, they cannot actually without touching the Finance Act. So we have a rigidity there, which might then mean as social partners, we must meet and find perhaps another way, which is more immediate.
So without any appropriate interventions at this point, does that spell a crash of some sort from an inflationary perspective?
Definitely, if we do not intervene, the inflation will be pushed up. I actually expect that the month-on-month inflation for April will be up. And the
by what margin? Well, what margins are we talking about?
Yeah,
we have been celebrating single-digit inflation. January at 4%, February 3%. In terms of the annual inflation, what are we talking about for April if nothing changes?
What will go up is the transport, the food, and those two components in the inflation basket will probably cause us another percentage point or two increase in the month-on-month. So we're looking at probably it going to 3% for April. But even if
what about the annual inflation?
The annual, you see, the annual is because annual we're measuring April last year to April this year,
Yes.
so it will still be low. It won't kick out immediately. It's the month on month that we'll see a move on. So I think at the end of the day, there's need for an immediate social dialogue to actually agree on an adopted solution for the nation. Because this is an exogenous problem. We are enjoying stability. It is just receiving a knock from outside. So we need to jealously guard it. So there's need for a call now for the social partners to meet, a round table, go over it and come up with a solution that can be implemented immediately. The tax one is correct. It's actually the easiest one to do, but it involves amending the Finance Act, which is more long
86 cents is the tax on our fuel. Why? Is that justified?
It's not sent as an absolute amount. The 86% is a result of application of the charge. So it's a percentage of the value of petroleum, which gives you, it's a total. There are a number of components there. It's not one line.
Right.
There are many things. I think there are about 4 or 5 that add up to 86 cents.
Right. What is the implication for you as retailers in this economy of all of this?
Even the retailers are at the receiving end. We are at the end of the value chain. So what I would suggest we do is, let's not look at the end. Let's look at the value chain. Those economic players that are in the value chain, they should also play their part. Because right now, if I get a product at $1 and my markup is 15%, it's $1.15. But if I had gotten it at 50 cents, then it means my price was going to be half. So as retailers, my recommendation would be, let's put our heads together. We can find a solution. We cannot afford to undo the gains that we had achieved as a country. As I said when you started this program, the effects are not going to be felt by the retailers only. They are going to be felt by everyone. If you had to look at what is happening in the retail space right now, retailers are trying to come back. But in this space now, if you are to have price increases again, then we are going to go back again. Then it's not going to be good for us as a country. So I can safely say if there are no interventions, we can actually witness some price increases. This week, I can tell you, yes, there have been requests to increase prices, but we said, no, guys, we believe it's a short-term thing. Let's hold on. But it will come to a point where you say, you know what, guys, we can't hold on again. Let's continue. Last week, the Beggars Association of Zimbabwe, they increased their salaries. And 75% of their salaries is in USD. Coupled with increase in fuel, coupled with increase in transport costs for the employees. All those things, if we add them, you have to ask yourself, what is it that the employer is going to be left with? So the only option which is left is to pass it on to the consumer. Yeah. And who is the consumer? It's you and me. After this show, we are the consumers. So let's make sure that we intervene, we do whatever it takes to make sure that we are not back to the inflationary periods again.
Well, time for us to take a breather. When we come back, we continue with this conversation. The Chase will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Didn't graduate. I guess I blew it.
You couldn't advise him anything. He would just look at you and say, so who do you think you are?
We were just like really spoiled.
And then they just give me the receipt and I'd pay.
The guy walks in one day and then he says that he wants to make a movie.
He was blowing the money.
There was just like this habit that he had where as soon as he got money, it was gone.
I just didn't have the skills or the experience.
This money, I could see it disappear so fast.
Welcome back, gospel music lovers, to another season of My Ultimate Gospel 10. Your ultimate destination for soul-stirring melodies and inspirational stories.
And prepare me for a good day.
And God is faithful because He's holy.
Like, wow, this is beautiful.
Each week, they'll be revealing their top 10 gospel songs. Meet Miss Becky K, the dynamic and passionate new presenter for Season 3.
If you are ready, let's get into My Ultimate Gospel 10.
Premiering soon, only on ZTN Prime. Stay tuned and let the music uplift your soul.
Catch exclusive interviews every weekday for candid, exciting, and thought-provoking conversations with your host, Erika Ndoro.
We talk about arts, we can talk about sports, we can even talk about politics, and sometimes we venture into a nice guitaristic play.
The one story where you can't get out of your head. Wakatarisa munhu so Erika like where you are sitting. Ndozongokona bata face so pasina munhu.
Wakasiya music yako yo Afro chakuti ndo music manje no Zimbabwe.
And I'm sure they're still saying the same thing now.
Yeah, so
Shona kana kuti chindevere kana mumwe mutauri muno muZimbabwe ndiwe iwewe ndiwo rupawo rwako ndicho chidadiso chako.
Catch me, Erika Ndoro, right here on ZTN Prime every single Monday at 7 p.m. whilst we get exclusive.
Dzinogadzirwa nevanhu.
Handogadzira pana vanhu kugadzira mini. Takuda kutora mumvuri wako.
Inosarudisa.
Inogadzira mari.
Ndinokugadzira muchirongwa munava munei.
Didn't graduate. I guess I blew it.
Continue the conversation looking at the subject Zig only for suppliers, turning point or gamble, where it is that we're looking at two subjects: the introduction of the National Standard Price List by Treasury, as well as the fuel price increases that have been witnessed globally, as well as here in Zimbabwe. And I continue the conversation with Blessing Nyatanga, a banker and economist, Moses Chihuri, an industrial economist, Mishek Ogado, president of Zimbabwe Economic Society, who is also a senior economist for the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, the ZNCC. Now, gentlemen, picking up from where we left off, I'll start with you at the Zimbabwe Economic Society. The statement issued by the Treasury Chief, Professor Mthuli Ncube, is speaking of what will happen from this particular point on with the National Standard Price List. But we do have a good number of government contractors who still have not been paid. I understand a treasury bill mechanism has also been put in place. Even the Minister of Finance, in a bid to try and make do of the situation, was also paying some of these contractors in hard currency, that's in the United States dollar. My question is, based on what's been presented, what does this mean for contracts that were in effect prior to the release of this very statement?
Yeah, I think there would be need to seek clarity from the authorities, because the statement is not clear. We know that the statement is applicable from now going onwards. I would not think it means applicable in retrospect to existing contracts. So, but however, I think we must seek clarity from the authorities so that they clarify as to what happens to outstanding contracts as at the point of instituting the policy. I would like also to add that as good as this step is, it is important, apart from updating the price list, it is important to meet timely payments to suppliers and contractors. I just thought of that because of this issue, this question which you have raised. Going forward, as the government pays its contractors in local currency, they must respect timely payments so that the contractors are not starved of cash flow, which then forces them to go back and start pricing forward, which is an issue we are running away, where in the past there was forward pricing in dealing with the government. So we need to do away with that. Since the government is now ensuring value for money, the contractors also need value. In other words, they need to be paid as at due date. So I think let's seek clarity from the authorities. I'm sure they will come, but if this tripartite negotiating forum is then implemented immediately as a matter of urgency, I think these clarities can come out, and then the market is made aware.
Blessing, you've got an issue where contractors across the economy, a good number of them, are saying that they are owed huge sums of money by the authorities, by government to be specific. What do you read from that? And also, there's also the subject of the issuance of treasury bills. Some of them are being paid in the form of treasury bills. What's the effect of that on the business fraternity? What's the effect of that where the entire economy is concerned?
Okay, I think the government will have to be very careful when they eventually issue out those payments, because obviously what we want to avoid is the emanation of the black market, as happened in the past. So, whenever these payments are done, you naturally expect the rates to go up, because you have these suppliers that are seeking the US dollar on the black market. So I think it remains very important for the government. They have to be cautious. They have to ensure that whenever they release these payments, then there have to be formal facilities to ensure that these suppliers get their forex to fund whatever they need to fund. And so that what we want to avoid ultimately is the black market emanating again. So what I read is that there should be mechanisms to avoid black market whenever these payments are done.
Right. Again, I'll relay a similar question, but perhaps framed differently, to say, yes, you've got this mechanism in place of how government is going to be making those payments from this point on. Critics contend that the effectiveness of the national standard price list is predicated on how soon and how fast government will be able to make payments to these contractors, and also it is also a function of just how quick and readily available foreign currency would be for those kind of operators whose input costs are denominated in US dollars. What's your reading?
Okay, I would like to go on a tangent. We need to address this currency called trust. The belief system for the Zimbabweans. Sometimes when I get my $1,000 ZIG, I'm not going to change it into USD because I want to use USD. I want to use it as store of value. The moment I have the confidence that I can get my ZIG, I can put it in the bank, after 6 months, I can still buy the same product that I wanted to buy 6 months ago. You realize that the appetite for people to go on the black market to look for money will be eroded, right? If you have to look at the structure of our school fees in Zimbabwe, it's predominantly in USD. But let's break it down. How much of that school fees is US dollars? We have our own maize, which is we are growing local. We are paying our school teachers local. Everything is like local. Maybe this fuel component is the US dollar. But the structure of our school fees is actually 100% USD. So to me, I would want to address the confidence issue. The moment we have good confidence as a people, I can guarantee you most of these things will be a thing of the past. If you had to look at when we were still going to school, I was saying to my colleagues here, I started to get the US dollar when I was like 24. That is when I started to receive $20 and said, oh, this is the US dollar. There was no need for you to get the US dollar, right? We need to go back to those times where we can say, you know what, I can only go for the US dollar when I want to import. But if it is for local, surely, how do I need the US dollar? But when there's a problem where the value chain, 80% of the value chain is in US dollars, then you tell me at the end of the market, received a zig. But 70% they're saying, you know what, for my bread, I need $1. For my beef, I need $1. For my pork, I need $1. For my fuel, I need $1. Then, Mr. Retailer, we need you to pay, to charge zig. But overall, I can simply say we need to find a balance. At the end of the day, if we don't find a balance, I will reiterate this, the effects are going to be felt by everyone in the value chain. The funny part about economics, it reacts to the fundamentals. No matter how much we try to cook them, it will definitely react to the fundamentals.
Right. Your recommendation, Zimbabwe Economic Society, with what we are presented with at this particular point, the national standard price list, as well as the increases in the fuel that we are observing at this point.
I think we must guard this current stability jealously. So we must be able to, all of us, all three partners, must be able to compromise and carry the load, all of us. So by carrying the load, I'm saying everyone must share this shock that is coming in. So labor must not raise wages. Business must not raise prices. Government must give back the extra tax that I demonstrated. That ad valorem is creating an extra revenue into the fiscus. So they must give that back to the market so that at least we contain this shock. Hopefully it ends very soon and then we're back to normal. We do not want to disturb this for any reason, this stability for any reason.
Well, I'd like to thank my guests, Blessing Nyatanga, a banker and economist, Mishek Ogaro, president of the Zimbabwe Economic Society, who is also senior economist with the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, Moses Chihuri, an industrial economist. Sirs, thank you for appearing on The Chase.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And of course, that's a wrap here on The Chase. Do follow us on our social media handles at Zim Papers TV Network as well as at Z10 Prime. Your views and your thoughts are important to us. Remember, of course, to engage with us every Thursday, 9 p.m. Central African Time. I'm Ibn Mabunda, the Money Man. Let them do what they do. When we do what we do, we mean business. Thank you for watching and have a good night.